The lights in the command center dimmed as Commander James Walker stared at the massive holographic display of Jupiter. Its swirling storms and bands of color filled the room with an eerie orange glow. 3 months had passed since Earth fell to the Dominion forces. 3 long months of hiding, planning, and rebuilding what remained of humanity's once proud fleet. "Status report," Walker called out, his voice steady despite the weight pressing down on his shoulders. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, their faces lit by the soft blue glow of their screens. "All ships maintaining position within Jupiter's radiation belt, Commander," reported Officer Mike Thompson from his post. "The magnetic interference is keeping us invisible to Dominion scanners." Walker nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Jupiter, the largest planet in their solar system, had become humanity's unlikely savior. Its powerful magnetic field and intense radiation created the perfect hiding spot for the remaining 57 ships of Earth's fleet. The Dominion's advanced sensors, which had proved so devastating during their initial attack, were useless here. "Engineering update," Walker asked, turning to face the other side of the command center. "Progress is good, sir," answered Lisa Wright, her hands moving quickly over her console. "We've successfully integrated the salvaged Dominion shield technology into 15 more of our ships. The radiation levels would have fried our old systems by now, but these hybrid shields are holding strong." The commander walked closer to the main viewport, watching the actual Jupiter beyond the holographic display. Its massive red spot, a storm larger than Earth itself, seemed to stare back at him like an angry eye. Somewhere beyond that giant planet, Dominion ships patrolled space, believing they had crushed all human resistance. They were wrong. A quiet beeping drew Walker's attention. "Commander," called out Tom Reed, their lead engineer. "You need to see this." The younger man's excitement was barely contained as he brought up new data on the main screen. "We've finished analyzing the captured Dominion weapon systems. Their energy matrix. It's not as advanced as we thought. They just use brute force, pushing massive amounts of power through their systems. But we found a way to be smarter about it." Walker studied the technical readouts, his military training helping him grasp the implications. "Can we adapt their technology to our ships?" "Better," Reed grinned. "We can improve it. Their systems waste energy. Ours will be more efficient, more precise. Give me 2 more weeks, and I can have the first prototype ready for testing." The news sparked something that had become rare in the command center: hope. Walker saw it reflected in the faces of his crew, the slight straightening of backs, the lifted chins. They needed this small victory. "Incoming transmission from Scout Team Alpha," announced Communications Officer Jenny Hart. "Text only, using the quantum-encrypted channel." Walker moved to her station, reading the message as it appeared. His expression darkened. The Dominion has started building something on Mars. Large structures, heavy machinery. They're stripping the planet's resources. The command center fell silent. Mars had been humanity's first colony, the beginning of their expansion into space. Now it was being torn apart by alien machines. "They think they've won," Walker said, his voice carrying across the quiet room. "They think humanity is beaten, that we'll hide in the dark corners of our own solar system while they take everything from us." He turned to face his crew, his eyes burning with determination. "But they don't understand what humans do when we're backed into a corner. We don't give up. We adapt. We survive. And when the moment is right, we strike back." The crew straightened at their stations, renewed purpose visible in their movements. In the shadow of Jupiter, humanity's remaining fleet grew stronger each day. The Dominion celebrated their victory, unaware that their greatest challenge was gathering strength right under their noses, hidden in the radiation storms of the solar system's largest planet. Walker looked back at Jupiter's swirling clouds. "Soon," he whispered. "Soon." Lieutenant Anna Miller felt her heart stop as she watched the encrypted video feed. The images showed long lines of humans being marched into massive transport ships on Earth's surface. The Dominion guards towered over them, their metallic armor gleaming in the sunlight. Her hands tightened into fists as she forwarded the data to Commander Walker's station. "Sir," she called out, keeping her voice steady. "You need to see this." The command center's atmosphere grew tense as Walker reviewed the footage. The bags under his eyes spoke of another sleepless night, but his voice remained firm. "How recent is this?" "Less than 6 hours old," Miller replied. "Our hidden drones captured it from multiple cities. They're not just occupying Earth anymore. They're relocating our people." Walker's jaw tightened. On the main display, Jupiter's storms continued their endless dance, but no one was watching them now. All eyes were fixed on the smaller screens showing scenes from their occupied homeworld. "Sir," Engineer Reed's voice cut through the silence. "I think I found something." He rushed over from his workstation, tablet in hand. "We've been studying the Dominion shield frequencies all wrong. Look at this pattern." The technical data he displayed showed a complex wave pattern. Their shields aren't just energy barriers. They pulse at specific frequencies. And there are gaps, microseconds, when they're vulnerable. Miller leaned in, her fighter pilot's mind already seeing the possibilities. "If we could time our shots to hit during those gaps." "Exactly." Reed nodded enthusiastically. "Their shields are powerful, but they have a rhythm. Like a heartbeat. Hit them between beats. And they're exposed." Walker finished, a spark of hope lighting his tired eyes. "How long to modify our weapons?" "A few days for the first fighter squadron," Reed answered. "Maybe 2 weeks for the larger ships." Walker turned to Miller. "Can your pilots hit a target with that kind of timing precision?" Miller stood straighter. "Give us the right targeting computers, and we'll put every shot exactly where it needs to be." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Miller watched as her fighter squadron's weapons were modified one by one. Engineers worked around the clock, installing new targeting systems that could detect and exploit the tiny gaps in Dominion shields. During a test firing, Miller sat in her fighter's cockpit, watching the target drone's shield flicker. The new targeting computer beeped, showing the shield's pulse pattern. She pressed the trigger at exactly the right moment. The shot passed through the millisecond gap and destroyed the drone. "Direct hit." Reed's voice came through her radio. "Perfect timing." Back in the command center, more news arrived. Officer Hart's hands flew over her communication console. "Commander, we're picking up resistance broadcasts from Earth. They're using old radio frequencies, bouncing signals off the ionosphere." Walker moved to her station. "What are they saying?" "Multiple groups are organizing," Hart reported. "They're sharing information about Dominion patrol patterns, guard rotations. Some have even managed to steal weapons. The human spirit," Walker said quietly, "is harder to break than they expected." Miller looked at the latest footage from Mars. The Dominion's mining operation had grown massive, stripping away the red planet's resources. But now she saw something new in those images, not just destruction, but opportunity. Those mining operations would need supply lines, regular shipments, predictable patterns. "Commander," she said, stepping forward, "I have an idea for our first strike." Walker turned to her, reading the determination in her stance. Around them, the command center hummed with energy. The time for hiding was coming to an end. In the shadow of Jupiter, humanity had rebuilt, adapted, and prepared. Now they would remind the Dominion why Earth's children had dreamed of the stars for so long. They weren't just survivors. They were warriors, and they were ready to fight back. The simulator pod shook violently as Miller executed another high-speed turn around Jupiter's moon Europa. Behind her, 5 other pods housed her squadron's pilots, all of them practicing the new attack pattern dubbed the Jupiter Protocol. "Keep it tight," she commanded through the comm system. "Use Europa's gravity to build speed, then slingshot past Io. The radiation will hide us until the last possible moment." In the observation room, Commander Walker watched the simulation screens with Engineer Reed. The pilots' ships were represented as green dots, weaving through the complex gravity fields of Jupiter's moons. 68% success rate now, Reed reported, checking his data, up from 43% last week. The pilots are learning fast. Walker nodded, but his attention was drawn to a new alert flashing on the main screen. What's that? Dominion Patrol, Officer Thompson called out from his station. 3 ships moving into Jupiter's outer orbit, but our stealth systems are holding. They can't see us through the interference. The massive gas giant had become more than just a hiding place. Its powerful gravitational pull, combined with the complex orbits of its many moons, gave human ships unique advantages. The Dominion's larger vessels couldn't match their maneuverability in these conditions. Reed pulled up a new display, showing their latest weapon modifications. The hybrid cannons are ready, sir. We've combined Dominion energy matrices with human targeting systems. They're smaller than pure Dominion weapons, but twice as efficient. And harder to detect, Walker added, studying the specs. They'll never expect their own technology to be used against them like this. In her simulator pod, Miller finished another run. Sweat dripped down her face despite the pod's cooling systems. The Jupiter protocol was the most demanding flying she'd ever done, using the gravity of 3 moons to build up speed for an attack run. The pod's door opened with a hiss. "Lieutenant," a young engineer called out, "we've finished the modifications to your actual fighter. Want to see?" Miller followed him to the hangar bay. Her fighter sat in its maintenance cradle, panels open to expose the new hybrid weapons. The engineer explained the changes as they walked around the ship. "We've reduced the energy signature by 40%, he said proudly, "but increased actual firepower. The Dominion won't know you're armed until it's too late." Back in the command center, Walker received a new encrypted transmission. Officer Hart decoded it quickly, her expression growing serious. "Sir, Resistance forces on Earth report increased Dominion activity around their quantum communication facilities. They might be detecting our transmissions." Walker considered this news. They'd been using stolen Dominion quantum tech to coordinate with Earth's resistance, but it was always a risk. "Tell all resistance cells to go dark for 48 hours. We'll establish new protocols." Reed approached with another update. "Commander, the magnetic field sensors are picking up something interesting. Jupiter's storms are intensifying. If we could find a way to harness that energy." "Can we?" Walker asked, seeing new possibilities. "Maybe. The same principles we use to hide could be turned into a weapon. Jupiter's magnetic field is thousands of times stronger than Earth's. If we could focus it somehow." Their discussion was interrupted by Miller's return to the command center. "Sir, the squadron is ready. We've mastered the Jupiter protocol. When do we strike?" Walker looked at the tactical display. Dominion mining operations on Mars had expanded again. Supply ships made regular runs between Mars and Earth, but more importantly, their patrol patterns had become predictable. They were growing comfortable, overconfident. Soon, Walker promised, his eyes fixed on the display. "They think they own this system now. They've forgotten that humanity was born here, that we've studied these planets our whole lives." He turned to his crew, seeing the same determination in every face. "We'll remind them, and it will cost them everything." In the hangar bay below, engineers continued their work, preparing humanity's hidden fleet for the battle to come. The time for hiding was almost over. "All ships, maintain radio silence," Walker commanded from the bridge of his flagship. The human fleet moved silently through space, using Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede, as cover. Ahead of them, Mars hung in the darkness like a red jewel, its surface scarred by Dominion mining operations. Lieutenant Miller sat in her fighter's cockpit, leading the squadron that would strike first. Her hands were steady on the controls as they waited for the perfect moment. The new targeting computer showed the predicted shield patterns of the Dominion mining facilities. "Remember your training," she said quietly to her pilots. "Hit them between the shield pulses. 1 shot, 1 kill." Engineer Reed's voice came through a secure channel. "Dominion supply ships are right on schedule. 3 large vessels approaching the mining complex from Earth." Walker watched the tactical display as the supply ships entered Mars orbit. Everything depended on perfect timing. The Dominion had grown lazy, following the same patterns every day. They were about to pay for that mistake. "Lieutenant Miller," Walker said, "you have permission to execute Jupiter Protocol." Miller's fighter squadron activated their engines, using Ganymede's gravity to accelerate. The maneuver they'd practiced hundreds of times in simulation was now real. 12 human fighters shot around the moon's curve, their hybrid engines silent and deadly. "Target lock confirmed," Miller reported as her squadron approached the mining facility. "Shields are pulsing exactly as predicted." The Dominion facility grew larger in her viewport. No alarms had been raised yet. Their approach was perfectly masked by the natural radiation of the solar system. The targeting computer beeped, showing the microsecond gaps in the enemy shields. "Fire on my mark," Miller ordered. The distance counted down. 3, 2, 1, mark. 12 fighters fired simultaneously. Their hybrid weapons, built from modified Dominion technology, sent precise energy bursts through the shield gaps. The facility's main power core erupted in a massive explosion. "Direct hits," Miller called out, moving to secondary targets. The Dominion supply ships tried to react, but they were caught completely off guard. Their shields were still configured for radiation protection, not combat. The human fighters tore through their defenses with surgical precision. "This is Earth Fleet Actual," Walker broadcast on all frequencies, letting the Dominion hear humanity's voice for the first time since their defeat. "Your assumption of victory was premature." From behind Ganymede, the rest of the human fleet emerged. Their main guns, modified with hybrid technology, opened fire on the remaining mining facilities. Each shot was perfectly timed to slip through shield gaps. Dominion distress calls filled the communications channels. Their orbital defense platforms tried to respond, but the human attacks came too fast, too precisely. Years of studying planetary orbits and gravity fields gave humanity's pilots unprecedented advantages in their own solar system. Multiple explosions in the mining complex, Officer Thompson reported from the flagship. "Their power grid is collapsing." "Wait." Detecting multiple ships jumping in from Earth orbit. "Dominion reinforcements." "Right on schedule," Walker smiled. "Lieutenant Miller, begin Phase 2. Miller's squadron regrouped, then executed another slingshot maneuver around Mars' moon Phobos. The Dominion reinforcements charged forward, expecting an easy victory against the supposedly defeated humans. Instead, Miller's fighters hit them from an impossible angle, using Phobos' gravity to achieve speeds their engines alone never could. More hybrid weapons fire slipped through shield gaps, destroying 3 Dominion warships before they could even return fire. "All ships, prepare for withdrawal," Walker ordered. Back to Jupiter's shadow. The human fleet pulled back in perfect formation, leaving behind a devastated mining complex and several destroyed Dominion ships. As they retreated, Miller looked back at Mars through her cockpit window. The red planet's surface was now marked by multiple explosions, a clear message to the Dominion. Humanity wasn't hiding anymore. They were hunting. The command center buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from across the solar system. 3 days had passed since the strike on Mars, and the Dominion was in chaos. Walker watched multiple holographic displays showing the aftermath of their attack. "Sir," Officer Hart called out, "intercepted communications show the Dominion mining operation is completely shut down. They lost 40% of their processing capacity." Miller stood beside Walker, still in her flight suit from running combat drills. "Their patrol patterns have changed completely. They're scattered, trying to cover too much space at once." The main screen showed a new transmission from Earth's resistance. Dominion forces were pulling back from several cities, consolidating their positions. Their once perfect occupation was showing cracks. "Commander," Reed interrupted, rushing into the command center. "The magnetic field sensors. You need to see this." He pulled up new data on a side screen. "Jupiter's storms are getting stronger. The patterns are unlike anything in our records." Before Walker could respond, Officer Thompson's console lit up with urgent alerts. Multiple quantum space distortions detected. Massive fleet jumping in near Saturn. The tactical display updated, showing hundreds of new Dominion ships appearing around the ringed planet. At their center was a vessel twice the size of anything they'd seen before. "That's the Dominion flagship," Walker said quietly. "Which means the Vanquisher," Miller finished. Even in the simulator archives, no one had ever scored a victory against the legendary Dominion commander. The command center fell silent as a transmission cut through all their security. A deep voice echoed through the room, speaking perfect English. "To the human forces hiding in this system," the voice said calmly, "I am the one you know as the Vanquisher. Your recent attack was impressive. You have earned the right to die fighting rather than hiding." Walker signaled Hart to trace the transmission, but Reed was already shaking his head. "They're using some kind of quantum broadcast. I've never seen anything like it." The Vanquisher continued, "Your species interests me. No other race has adapted our technology so quickly. But adaptation will not save you. I have ended rebellions across 12 star systems. You will be the 13th. The transmission cut off. Walker turned to his crew, seeing the mix of fear and determination on their faces. "Get me detailed scans of that flagship. Every reading we can get." Reed worked his console frantically. "Sir, their energy output is massive, but there's something strange about their shield configuration. They're routing power in ways we've never seen." Miller studied the tactical display. "Look at their formation. They're not spreading out to search for us. They're trying to draw us out, because they know we'll have to respond." Walker nodded. "They'll start hitting civilian targets next. The resistance won't be able to hide forever." Reed suddenly straightened at his station. "Commander, I think I know why Jupiter's storms are intensifying. The Dominion fleet's quantum drives. They're affecting the planet's magnetic field somehow." "Can we use that?" Walker asked. "Maybe, if we could find a way to amplify the effect." Reed's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. Their own ships might become the trigger for something much bigger. Miller looked at the tactical display again. The Vanquisher's formation. "If we could get them to follow us into the right position near Jupiter's magnetic poles." Walker understood immediately. "We'd only get one chance. If it fails." "It won't fail," Reed said with conviction. "Humanity's spirit got us this far, but we'll need every ship, every pilot, every bit of skill we've developed." Walker looked at his crew, then back at the image of the massive Dominion fleet. The Vanquisher had ended 12 rebellions across the galaxy, but none of those races had been fighting for Earth. None of them had been human. "Begin the preparations," he ordered. "It's time to show them what humanity can really do." 2 weeks had passed since the Vanquisher's arrival. In the shadow of Jupiter's northern pole, the human fleet made its final preparations. Every ship had been modified according to Reed's calculations, their shields reconfigured to withstand what was coming. Miller walked through her squadron's hangar, checking each fighter personally. The mechanics had worked without rest, installing the new magnetic field generators that Reed had designed. "Remember," she told her pilots during their final briefing, "when the signal comes, you'll have exactly 30 seconds to reach your assigned positions. The magnetic field will only be properly aligned for a few minutes." In the command center, Walker reviewed the plan one last time with his officers. The tactical display showed Jupiter's massive form, with key points marked around its magnetic poles. "The Vanquisher expects us to be clever," Walker explained. "He expects tricks, ambushes, hit-and-run attacks. What he doesn't expect is for us to turn an entire planet into a weapon." Reed stepped forward, pointing to various spots on the display. "Each ship needs to be precisely positioned. When activated together, our magnetic field generators will create a resonance effect with Jupiter's natural field." "And the Dominion fleet?" Officer Thompson asked. "Their quantum drives are already affecting Jupiter's storms," Reed answered. "When they follow us into position, their own engines will amplify the effect. They'll create their own trap." Officer Hart's console suddenly lit up with urgent messages. Commander, multiple reports from Earth resistance cells. The Dominion is mounting a massive operation, searching every hidden bunker, every underground shelter. Walker's jaw tightened. The Vanquisher is forcing our hand. He knows we won't let them destroy the resistance. Sir, Miller spoke up. My pilots are ready. We've run the simulation hundreds of times. Simulation isn't reality. The Vanquisher's voice cut through their communications again. Your resistance on Earth is being eliminated as we speak. Surrender now, and I will grant them mercy. Walker signaled to Hart. Can we trace it this time? No, sir, but... She paused, checking her readings. The quantum signature is different. They're getting closer. Of course they are. Walker smiled grimly. The Vanquisher isn't just hunting us. He's positioning his fleet exactly where we need them to be. Reed checked his calculations again. The magnetic field distortions are growing stronger. If we're going to do this, it has to be soon. Walker looked at each of his officers in turn. Send the coded signal to Earth resistance. Tell them to get to the deep bunkers. All ships begin final preparations. In her fighter's cockpit, Miller ran through the pre-flight checks. The new magnetic field generator hummed quietly behind her seat. Across the hangar, other pilots did the same. Lieutenant, Reed's voice came through her comm. The magnetic field generators in your fighters are the key. You'll create the initial resonance pattern that the larger ships will amplify. Understood, Miller replied. My pilots won't let you down. Back in the command center, the tactical display showed the Dominion fleet moving closer to Jupiter. The Vanquisher was methodically searching every possible hiding spot, his ships following a precise pattern. He's good, Walker admitted, studying the enemy formation. But he's fighting the last war. He doesn't understand what we've become. A final message arrived from Earth. The resistance was going dark, heading to their deepest shelters. Whatever happened next would determine everything. All ships, battle stations, Walker commanded. The human fleet came alive, every system powering up in perfect synchronization. Today we remind the Dominion that this is our solar system. This is where humanity was born, where we learned to survive, to adapt, to fight. He looked at Jupiter's swirling storms one last time. And this is where we take back our home. All ships, execute Jupiter Protocol. Walker's command rang through the fleet's communication channels. The human forces emerged from hiding, their formation precisely aligned with Jupiter's magnetic poles. Miller led her fighter squadron in a tight arc around Jupiter's upper atmosphere. Below them, the gas giant storms raged with unprecedented fury, red and orange clouds swirling in massive patterns. Dominion fleet detected. Officer Thompson called out. Multiple signatures approaching at high speed. The Vanquisher's flagship is leading them. The massive Dominion fleet appeared against the starfield, their ships arranged in an attack pattern that had conquered 12 other civilizations. The Vanquisher's flagship dwarfed everything around it, its quantum drive leaving ripples in space. Right into position, Walker smiled grimly. Lieutenant Miller, begin Phase 1. Miller's fighters activated their magnetic field generators simultaneously. The devices pulsed in harmony with Jupiter's natural field, creating waves of invisible force that rippled through space. Energy spike detected in the Dominion fleet, Reed reported from his station. Their quantum drives are reacting exactly as predicted. The Vanquisher's voice cut through their communications again. An interesting strategy, Commander Walker. But magnetic disturbances cannot harm our shields. Now, Lieutenant, Walker ordered. Miller's squadron split into precise formations, their paths creating a complex geometric pattern around Jupiter's poles. Each fighter's magnetic generator added to the growing resonance. Dominion fleet is responding, Thompson reported. They're moving to surround us. Wait, something's wrong with their engines. The Vanquisher's massive fleet had begun to struggle against invisible forces. Their quantum drives, far more powerful than human engines, were being pulled into resonance with Jupiter's magnetic field. Their own power is working against them, Reed explained excitedly. The quantum drives are amplifying the effect exponentially. Miller watched as her targeting computer showed the magnetic field strength growing beyond anything they'd simulated. Jupiter's storms below began to spiral upward, reaching into space itself. All ships, full power to shields, Walker commanded. The human fleet's hybrid defense systems, designed specifically for this moment, strained against the growing magnetic maelstrom. The Vanquisher's fleet wasn't so fortunate. Their superior quantum technology, which had helped them conquer so many worlds, became their undoing. Ship after ship lost power as the magnetic resonance cascaded through their systems. "Your courage is admirable," the Vanquisher transmitted, his voice now showing strain. "But this attack cannot penetrate our—" His transmission cut off as a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from Jupiter's pole. The human fleet's hybrid shields flickered but held. The Dominion ships weren't so lucky. "Multiple explosions in the enemy fleet," Thompson shouted. "Their shield generators are overloading." Walker watched as the Vanquisher's mighty flagship, Pride of the Dominion, began to break apart under forces it was never designed to withstand. The human fleet had turned Jupiter itself into a weapon, using the enemy's own power against them. "All fighters, form up on me," Miller ordered, leading her squadron in a final attack run. "Target any ships still operational." But there was no need. The Dominion fleet, once the terror of 12 star systems, was reduced to drifting debris. The few ships that still had power were retreating in panic, their quantum drives permanently damaged. "Signal from Earth," Hart announced joyfully. "The Dominion forces are withdrawing. Their ground commanders are ordering a full retreat." Walker looked at his crew, seeing tears of joy mixed with exhaustion on their faces. "Send word to all resistance cells," he ordered. Tell them to come out of hiding. Tell them to look up at the sky." Miller's voice came through the comm as her squadron flew past the command ship. "Should we pursue the retreating enemy ships, sir?" "No, Lieutenant," Walker replied, watching Jupiter's storms begin to calm. "Let them run. Let them tell everyone they meet what happened here. Let them spread the word across the galaxy." He paused, looking at the scene of humanity's greatest victory. "Let them tell everyone that Earth is protected. That humans don't just survive. We turned the power of planets themselves against our enemies. And we're coming to take back everything they stole from us."